in considering it as integral part of national security. इसके लिए आपको strengthening global mechanisms की तरफ काम करना है, medical advancement and innovations काम करना है, capacity building लिए काम करना है, global coordination के लिए काम करना है. There's so many things we have to do for this to keep ourselves safe and protected. अगर हम national security की बात करते हैं, उस context में हमें काम करने की जरूरत है. Thank you, Vidya. Sorry, I have taken more time what you have allotted. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking speech, sir. Now I will invite Dr. Upendra Prakash, the Head of Department Political Science, SKR College, Barbigha, to introduce the speaker. Da sir, please unmute yourself.
हेलो, हमारी आवाज जा रही है? हेलो,
हाँ सर, आपकी आवाज आ रही है. प्लीज कंटिन्यू सर. आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
हाँ, शुरू करते हैं. गुड मॉर्निंग सर, मैं डॉक्टर उपेंद्र प्रकाश दास, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर, एचओडी, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस, एसकेआर कॉलेज, बरबीघा. आज का विषय है वैश्विक महामारी के युग में राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा पर पुनर्विचार. आज इसी विषय पर डॉक्टर सुधीर सिंह वर्मा जी अपना विचार व्यक्त करेंगे, जिससे हम सब काफी लाभान्वित होंगे. ये बड़े विद्वान और अच्छे वक्ता भी हैं. डॉक्टर सुधीर सिंह वर्मा, जो सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पंजाब बठिंडा में असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर के पद पर कार्यरत हैं. इन्होंने एमए, एमफिल एवं पीएचडी की डिग्री जवाहरलाल यूनिवर्सिटी से लिया है. इनका स्पेशल पेपर इंटरनेशनल स्टडीज एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज पॉलिटिक्स, एनवायरमेंटल पॉलिसी एंड इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस है. इनके रिसर्च एरियाज हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज, पॉलिटिक्स एंड गवर्नेंस, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस एंड फॉरेन पॉलिसी, इंडिया, रशिया एंड सेंट्रल एशिया, री-इमेजिनेशन पॉलिटिकल साइंस इन एंथ्रोपोइंस एरा. इन्हें कई अवार्ड एवं स्कॉलरशिप प्राप्त हुए हैं. ये स्कूल बोर्ड ऑफ इंटरनेशनल स्टडीज के मेंबर भी हैं. सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ पंजाब फ्रॉम 2019 to 11. इन्होंने मेनी नेशनल एंड इंटरनेशनल मैगजीन में योगदान दिया है और अभी फील्डों में yes.
I hope that everyone doing well. So today I am going to speak on redefining national security through building resilient states. So I am going to discuss something different, which is before was a
Please continue, sir.
Okay.
It's quite visible.
Thank you. So previous speakers and Honorable Vice Chancellor sir has spoken so many topics which I wanted to discuss here. Although my job is now easy to discuss this issue today. Shantesh Kumar sir has covered all the comprehensive issues in his presentations. Now I am starting my today's discussion that epidemics and pandemics it's not new. It's time to time surfaced in the history of human civilization, and this time to time surfaced in the history of human civilization. And these pandemics not only affect health of humans, but also brought the revolutionary changes in attitude and affairs of human activities. That is social, cultural, economic, and political, and largely order and institution in society and state. So now we are living in the 21st century's coronavirus disease pandemic, which brought the crisis. It first appeared in the city of Wuhan, China, in December 2019. So some Western media also referred this virus as a Chinese virus. That's in the international level. So I'm quoting that the Robert Dingwall, he's a sociologist, said that emerging diseases are causes of instability, uncertainty, and even crisis. Crisis always brought large changes in the system. I already said. So as Francis Fukuyama is a renowned political scientist, argues that major crises have a major consequences, usually unforeseen. Uh, Unforeseen. For example, we can say the First World War led to establishment of Soviet Union that has become as as a ground for experimentation of Marxist ideology. Then also first wave of the decolonization, the Great Depression, which led to the isolationism, nationalism, fascism, and Second World War. Then Second World War also brought New Deal, emergence of superpowers, United States and Soviet Union. Also, started on the Cold War. Then second wave of decolonization also seen by the world. Uh, the end of the Cold War, which is led by the fall of the Berlin Wall, also started the third wave of decolonization, collapse of the Soviet Union, and the widely adaptation of the liberal economic and political system by the countries in the world. Uh, about the globalization after the 1990s, which has taken the pace due to of the emergence of the you know technological innovations in the telecommunication and information technologies. So later on, 9/11, which also brought a sea change in the thinking about the security, which also resilience given the resilience got place in the security strategies. 2008 financial crisis has given birth of anti-established populism in the world, and now the COVID-19 will have a definitely to bring changes in the human activities and social and state institutions. So pandemics is not merely a health crisis, but is an unprecedented socio-economic crisis. As previous scholars also discussed about, there's a labor migration and hunger, etc. So this pandemic creates devastating social, economic, and political effects, which will leave deep and long-standing scare. So Francis Fukuyama also further observed that some countries have done better than others in dealing with the crisis so far. He also identified the factors which makes enable these countries to respond successfully against this unprecedented crisis. These factors are the state capacity, social trust, and leadership. So, which country has a larger level of the state capacity through the infrastructure, economic, economic wealth, and responsive governance, public services, and awareness by the people. Now the all pandemic created the health crisis, which is largely affected to the national security. Globalization also discussed largely by the Dr. Shantesh Kumar Singh, but here I will quote Australian Department of Defense observations about the globalization's negative impact. Uh, Australian Department of Defense quote that the negative side of globalization is that this connectedness brings potential security threats closer to us. Globalization speeds up the impact and significance of existing and new threats, shortening response times and increasing uncertainty. While globalization offers significant opportunities, it also can help the spread of extremist terrorism and disease such as avian influenza. So, where is the role of the resilient state? Resilient states are able to cope with changes driven from either shocks or through long-term losses in capacity and legitimacy. So ensuring resilience means building capacity, effective institutions, and legitimacy through sound political processes that facilitate state-society relations and expectations. So, therefore, creating a balance between state society expectations is critical to achieving resilience and reducing fragility risk. So, here, resilience we are going to discuss about the possibilities for the future events, not the present. But resilience also makes enable to state to respond successfully to the present threat. So now, before moving to the further, just I want to discuss about the conceptual understanding. National security already defined by the previous scholars. So here, just I'm defining this. National security is best described as a capacity to control those domestic and foreign conditions that the public opinion of a given community believes necessary to enjoy its own self-determination or autonomy, prosperity, and well-being. It's a given by the Charles Mayer. Now there's a risk. Basically, resilience need to discuss in the context of the vulnerability and risk and threat. So, what is a risk? Risk can be defined in two terms, descriptive as well as to the normative. When we are defining in the descriptive terms, then actor is invoking risk by describing a particular danger, hazard, or dangerous scenario. When risk is defined in normative terms, then a actor defining a risk in terms of desire to engage in proactive anticipatory risk management activities. It is also defined in terms of probabilities and consequences. Why? Because of uncertainty. Uncertainty, it is related with the risk. We'll take other new types of the the problems, just as like climate change, uh, infectious diseases, terrorism. It's uncertain. We can't expect already. So that's probabilities and consequences related to the this risk. So risk we can uh, define in that out there, that means which is going to be happen. So risk here enable to the actor possible postulating scenario or event which materialize at some future point, meaning risk assessment, which is relies on subjective assessments of what the future might bring. So here, subjectivity is also play a role in the assessment of the risk. So when we are, discussing about the risk, trying to understand the risk, which is the concept which marries the present with the future. Okay? So here, when futuristic scenario may not occur. So it is not surety that what we are calculating and we are preparing that will occur. That may not be occur also. Okay. So here we can say that risk is a future threat that has not yet materialized and may never do so. So when a risk is realized, when the consequences of any given risk become real, so then the risk becomes a threat properly when we are facing. So then that means in the risk society is creating when individuals always thinking about the risk, then risk society is in it. So in the risk society, people look the future rather than the past to guide their present scenario. Past is very important to learn the lesson to respond the threat. Now is what is threat? We need to also differentiate. So threat we can define in terms of capabilities and intentions. Capabilities we have seen after the Second World War. Countries visit to build up its arsenals. And when building arsenals by a country, also assessed by another country of their intentions to use of that arsenals. So this gives the sense of insecurity. So here the security dilemma creates in the world politics. So then it's a capabilities and intentions. When we are defining threat, then threats also constitute action-reaction relationship. When we perceive a threat, we also react. So when we are reacting, we also judging, and we try to know about what is the threat, which type of threat, what is the intensity of the threat. Then we are reacting. So here is the knowledge also play a role. Little role. Then vulnerability. So vulnerability is also related to the risk. When one is vulnerable, is having the more susceptibility to expose to the negative impacts of the problem, issues, or threats. So the what is the vulnerability? It is the capacity to be wounded. That's when defined. So the vulnerability can be assessed, measured through the existing socio-economic and political inequalities, socio-economic and political inequality. So in the country, there is a need to take care of the socio-economic and political inequalities. Already, the first speaker discussed about the inequalities, trickle down effects, and this growth to whom, for whom, he has discussed about. So this is also defined about the vulnerability. In the case of the climate change, the poor are in the front line to so that poor needs more help to cope these problems. Resilience, now the concept another resilience which is using, and it is today's discussion I am centering on the resilience. So resilience is the capacity to absorb shocks and to bounce back into functioning shape, and at the least sufficient resilience to prevent stress factors or even system collapse. It is a bouncing back. That means if resilience can be defined at the individual level, at the collective level, at the societal level, and larger at the state level. So at the individual level, individual is resilience when individuals are having the a strong psychological, emotional, social and economic capital. So I suppose that once losing job, how that individual is bouncing back in a normal life. So this is the resilience concept. So now state resilience. What is the state resilience? State resilience. Resilient states are capable of absorbing shocks and transforming and channeling radical change or challenge while maintaining political stability and preventing violence. Resilient states exhibit the capacity and legitimacy of governing a population and its territory. Now the resilience, state resilience and national security. So resilience on a concept. Basically, this concept, emerged in the 17th century English dictionary first time. and later in the 19th century it is adopted by the mechanics, and in the 20th century this concept adopted by the geology and psychology. Throughout the 2000, the concept found place in the field of strategies and emergency management. When it is adopted in the strategic and emergency management, here that means how to respond to the emergency situations. So the concept of resilience has been used as here the problem solving tool, so which opens up the security to a range of new actors and thereby leaves the state behind to a certain degree. So here is the state is not the a dominant player to provide the security. Here the other players also came forward to providing security. That's the non-state actors. So traditional role of the state changed when the resilience concept entered in the security and strategic studies. So but around 2010, the problem-solving approach has been challenged by the emergence of another the approach in the resilience literature that's called the alternative stream. So this alternative stream is known as the new liberal tool. It's a new liberal tool. It basically asks the political questions, which is that that this rule the new liberal tool is just of is the logic of empowerment. Liberalism is always uh, advancing the argument to empower the individual, to give the liberty to the individuals and let to the do the entrepreneurship for the searching new things and new knowledge, which is useful for providing the security. So here, when the new liberal tool or the questions, basically again the same question comes: a resilience to whom, by means, by what means, and with what consequences. Basically, it is a subjective. I said that already. It is a subjective, so that resilience, political questions emerge here. So. State need to address all these questions. So after 9/11, the resilience as a strategy has been adopted by the country, the US, to secure its citizens, and it became widely adopted in national security policy after 2010. Some countries around the world incorporated resilience in their national security strategies, such as Canada, Netherlands, Australia, and the UK. UK is the known as the classic case of the case of resilience, which incorporated in its national security strategies. So now here, resilience is no longer about if these will happen. So it is rather about how to withstand when they happen. Okay? So resilience is not only the one type. We need to hear the types of the resilience also exist. The types of resilience, there are two types. One is specified, which is not events. So in the specified resilience, identify risk and anticipate security events. Second type of it is general, which is that coping with the unknown. We don't know which risk is happening, what the changes brought by what factor, but we are prepared to cope these unknown changes. So resilience here now measured with the risk, vulnerability, or more recently well-being, individual well-being. Already discussed. So I'm not going to discuss about the well-being because of previous scholars already discussed all the well-being concept, which is changing the discourse of the national security. Now, the national resilience also emerged in the national security agenda, which is stemming from a notion of the broadening a variety of new security threats, which brought the national vulnerabilities, which is arising from the global interdependence an overarching condition of uncertainty under which national security is now required to operate. So the concept of uncertainty is very important when we are going to discuss about the resilience. So concept of uncertainty, which is suggests that the threats are increasingly harder to recognize and unpredictable in timing and scale. So as a result, the concept of security can be seen as having a decreasing utility, as it is not possible to prepare and respond to all imaginable threat effectively, and if it especially cost effectively threats effectively and cost effectively. So this in turn has created favorable conditions for a resilience approach to national security. So resilience has indeed been increasingly promoted as a potential solution to this dilemma. So here the resilience now challenging the traditional role of the state as a security provider. So what resilience incorporates? Now resilience incorporates issues from public health and social cohesion to industrial disasters and terrorism. Also, ecological problems. So in the national security domain, where one hand language of risk, threat, vulnerability is used, another hand principles of resilience also used. What are these principles of resilience? Protection, adaptation, collaboration, empowerment, and capacity building. They are, used in relation to the different object of security. So be it states, societies, critical infrastructure network, or vulnerable communities. So, you know, to securing a state and its citizens, a state adopts measures to ensure security itself. So, what a state now here playing the a major role protecting its interest. So what this here state needs to recoup the center and states and a partial dependence of the states upon payments from the center. The Constitution of India envisages a creative balance between the need for an effective center and empowered states. So that's very famous Indian constitutional law expert Granville Austin argues that despite a strong center, cooperative federalism does not necessarily result in weaker state. Rather, the progress of the republic rests upon the creative cooperation between the two. So, uh, you can see in the case of the COVID-19, the cooperation is required to address COVID-19 effectively. In February 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also stated in the Lok Sabha that to make the nation stronger, we need to make our states stronger. So that means in the cooperative federalism, states should be respected equally by the center. We have also seen the fissure in the federalism in Indian case. What is the fissure about? The fissure about the first, emerged in the case of the Citizenship Amendment Bill, enacted by the Indian Parliament. Kerala, became the first state which passed a resolution against the Citizen Amendment Act, and but when the Kerala Assembly passed, then the legal questions emerged. Can state assembly pass such a resolution to challenge the parliament bill, parliament law? So this the debates goes on. Another the fissures can be identified. So we have read in the newspapers there's a disaster management act of 2005 which gives the power to the center to impose emergency the emergency powers to the center to control the pandemic situations in the country. And so that this act DM Act, the section 11 envisages that creation of national plan, and same Act, Section 11, Clause 2, mandate the state consultation before formulating of the national plan. Yes, then the guidelines issued by the under the section of 6 and 2. Then another, this, the lockdown also created the problem for the financial, giving the financial stress to the states. That because of the states, the resources of fund from the diesel and petrol, liquor, land, so they closed. So that's why states, starving for a fund, and states also complaining for the disbursement of the GST, amount by the center. So here we need to, the effective cooperative federalism. If you look at that, also the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, advocated the idea of competitive federalism in play, along with the cooperative federalism. Here in the, uh, competitive federalism, a state has to compare to another state for the bringing the economic well. Next is the improved political legitimacy. Legitimacy, the also another two types. One is descriptive, which is the Max Weber given. That's the sources of three. It's the royal blood. That's called the traditional and the charismatic, and the third is the legal. Normative is basically the roles and represent propagated the idea about that how the individual is perceiving a state for the its own security. It's also sometimes looked with the idea of justice. So that's a improved political legitimacy state is announcing before talking to the before the public that public should get the trust. So that means here is the trust is needed in the political system. So that's legitimacy gives the license to run the political power. So another is effective institutions. Effective institutions are also important player in building a resilient state. So why effective institution? That every institutions to work its own capacity, way. So institutional failure should not become. So that means interdependent, the freedom of institutions are required, as well as to the the interdependency or interdependent between the institutions. So that's cooperation also a part of the effective institution. Then empowering local institution. You look at this empowering local institution. That means in India, the 17th 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment. That's Panchayati Raj institutions in India. So now they in this we need to when the this constitutional amendment inserted in the constitution. That means decentralization of the governance. Centralization governance has the economies of scale, but decentralization of the governance is giving the is to giving the uh, a better way to respond to pandemic like situations and emergency situations. So here each layer of the governance should be capable. So that's a institution. I will read about the the case, because Kerala is the first state in India is a resilient state. Why? Because of Kerala, after seeing the floods, repeatedly devastation Kerala faced. COVID-19 first also case, the Kerala, and Kerala, how Kerala will respond. So Kerala state started along with the, with the help of the World Bank. So Kerala state started building the resilience there. So effective public services. So public services, that's during the lockdown we have seen that distribution of the resources, that's grains and food to the people, and the India in terms of these public services are improved when applying to the modern technologies. So just like the direct cash transfer through the digital mode to the public through this NDA regime. Improved and phrasing is stopped through that. So that's when pile phrasing is stopped. This if make efficient public services, reduce inequality. It is also already discussed by the previous scholar. That's the inequality should not be in India in a state. If inequality exists, a state could not be become as a resilient state. So now just next one is effective role of law and human rights protection for toward the development program which is sustainable in nature. If we are going to the definition by the Agenda 21, which defining that sustainable development is meeting the present generation's need without hampering the need of the future generation. So it is intergenerational justice, intergenerational as well as intragenerational justice program.
Recording has started.
Empowering to the Kerala, took the help to empower and to build the resilience. That's the National Biodiversity Act. That's Biodiversity Act, established National Biodiversity Authority, which is located in Chennai, and 29 state biodiversity boards, and then 2,49,098 biodiversity management committees at the rural and urban panchayat level. So with that, Kerala is building its own natural resources as well as the biological diversity at the local level through the process of having developed people's biodiversity registers. So this valuable nuanced understanding can give a great deal of detail into the recovery process. which otherwise could again repeat the centralized broad-brush treatment like before. So which led to the current situation. Now, so here in the case of the uh, COVID-19 lockdown, Indian state says about that. That's a specialized way to the production process, economic model India followed. What followed? That means import based. Through that, India supplied the labor forces to across the world. That's the Vande Bharat program, mission launched by the government to bring back the the people who are out abroad. Then in the labor market, that is the result of the economic model. That means that model is not helping for the self-sufficiency. So here we have also recall the Mahatma Gandhi's case of the village republics. Well, self dependent. So uh, that's a self sufficiency also need as felt during the lockdown when Kerala. Look at the case of the Kerala. Kerala, is known for the spices production and for the vegetables, food, and the food grain for poultry products. Kerala always imports from the neighboring countries, neighboring states. When lockdown imposed, then food insecurity erupt. So Kerala, uh, felt that there is a need also to grow these vegetables for poultry farms and to give to the agriculture sector boost. So that's also prime ministers, Prime Minister Narendra Modi felt also for the self-sufficiency, self-sufficiency when he expressed his thought about the self-sufficiency in the Gram Panchayat Day through the video conferencing on National Panchayat Raj Day, April 24. Honorable Prime Minister said that it has taught us that we have to be self-reliant, self-sufficient. It has taught us that we should not look for solutions outside the country. This is the biggest lesson we have learned. Every village has to be self-sufficient enough to provide for its basic needs. Similarly, every district has to be self-sufficient at its level. Every state has to be self-reliant at its level, and the whole country has to be self-reliant at its level. So, look at this. Starting from the village to the state level, not from the national level to the village level, but from the bottom to the up approach adopted. And through that self-sufficiency, Kerala state what is started to develop the assets at the village level. How they are developing the assets at the village level through working on the watershed development, soil and water management structures, better seeds for improved crop productivity, etc. And similarly, village, which is abutting forest, asset created could be for helping with the village biomass, which is also preventing the human animal conflict. In the urban area case, the asset created in terms of the green spaces and reliable water security to people. And another, the case of the with the help of World Bank, given a loan to the Kerala, $250 million to develop a Kerala as a resilient state. So this, the program focusing, resilient state program focusing to develop this improved river basin planning and water infrastructure. Here, you can see that's a focus area to be developed, improved river basin planning and water infrastructure operations management. Then water supply and sanitation services. Then resilient and sustainable agriculture, enhanced agriculture risk insurance, improved resilience of the core road network, unified and more up-to-date land records in high-risk areas, risk-based urban planning and strengthened expenditure planning by urban local bodies, and strengthened fiscal and public financial management capacity. These sectors, targeted by the World Bank and the Kerala state, with the help of also a center of the central government of the state of country. You know, so we can also look at another dimension about when I'm reading about the I read Prime Minister Narendra Modi's statement on the 24th April about the self-reliant. So in line with that, Prime Minister also announced for the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that in the Atmanirbhar Bharat, there's a pillar of this Atmanirbhar Bharat. There's a economy, vibrant demography, and demand. Vibrant demography, as India is a youth country in the world. So we need to also the first scholar notified about that India is also having the largest unemployed youth, also having the illiterate people. So there is a need to the India invest in the development of the human resources economy, because that's first the economy is very important. Although in the Atmanirbhar Bharat there is nowhere mentions about the resiliency, but we can look at the through resiliency concept. That's how these Atmanirbhar Bharat will build the self resilience in India. So India may, if implemented effectively, will become the resilient state. So economy is very important. Robustness of the military. That means effective military institutions, as well as India can also implement welfare policies effectively, and prosperity of India can also give the stronger image in the world. Then infrastructure. So resilience, the resilient state should focus the critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure, that means state needs to prioritize which infrastructure is need to build first. Very important for the ensuring security to state and its people. Then system should be responsive. I've discussed in the in the pillars. Then vibrant demography. Sorry, the vibrant demography is the when we have the quality human resources, then we can get the vibrant demography. So vibrant demography is will not only help to the lead to the economic development, but also gives the strength in the providing the security, as well as to the effective democratic processes in the in India, so that as a result can produce effective democracy. So and demand is very necessary. It's important for running a economy. So five phases of business, including MSC. First phase, second phase, including migrants and farmers. Third, agriculture, new horizons of growth, and fifth is government reforms and enablers. Now I am concluding my today's discussion. That's the impact of pandemic. So that can be measured in terms of revolutionary changes in human affairs, social, cultural, economic, and political. So this will also uh, uh, introduce new forms of globalization based on virtual interactions among people, and alter the existing political order in the world. This also can introduce a new form of the economy that's called the virtual economy and economy. Second, the state has responsibility and duty to protect its citizens and itself. Risks to national security are asymmetric in nature. So, terrorism, cyber warfare, human trafficking, disease in the form of epidemic and pandemic. So, For fighting such these asymmetric form of the threat, we need knowledge. So knowledge here become the weapon to fight these asymmetric national security challenges, not the power. So the state, particularly India, needs to allocate resources by prioritizing sector. That means we have to also build the health infrastructure to give the security to the public health. So then human resources, which is play a decisive role in providing security to its national interest. So the country must invest noticeable portion of its budget in public health and quality education. So a state can also works in the area along with the private players. So that's a public-private partnership can also be think about that. So resilience is a measured in terms of risk, vulnerability, and well-being. So the state must work for the withstand and encourage sustainable development and implement effective redistribution policies for bringing well-being among citizens. So at the last, a state should build resilience capability through building national critical infrastructure.
Also happens to be the head of department